Last time we ended with when Jacob was tricked by Laban. So the 5 points that I remember from last time is he kissed her immediately. He didn't introduce himself. He just went right up and gave her a big kiss. So and then immediately went and worked for her father Laban for free for a week. And then Laban asked, well, since you're working for me, would you like to get paid something? And then Jacob set the terms for his employment there. He's the one that said that I'll work for 7 years in order to have Leah, which is, I'm sorry, Rachel, which is the one that he was interested in. So he decided to work 7 years, and we discussed that it might have been for penance, for him feeling bad for what he did to his brother. It might be because that's how much he felt she was worth and wanted to show her how much that he thought she was worth. And then, as we said, Laban tricked the trickster on the night of their wedding. He snuck Leah, his older daughter, into Jacob's bed, and Jacob slept with her, and that was it, consummation of the marriage. As we remember, when Sarah first gave Hagar to Abraham, it said Sarah gave him to Abraham as his wife. So that was the culture then, that when people were engaged in a sexual relationship, they were married. So that's what happened to Jacob there. And then we also learned that God opened up Leah's womb because he saw that she was unloved. So this is another instance of God choosing when someone becomes pregnant, or when someone does not become pregnant. That has happened with both Rebecca and with Sarah, that God is the one that chose when they would conceive a child. So we are in the middle of Genesis 29 in verse, well, we'll start at 30. We'll start at 29. So this is after when Jacob confronted Laban. So Laban answered, it's not our custom to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older daughter is married. Wait until the bridal week of festivities is over, and then I'll give you Rachel, but you must serve me for another 7 years. So tapping into, as we do, how Leah must have felt. You know, this guy had showed no interest in her whatsoever. And then her father said, well, we're going to sneak you in on the wedding night instead of your sister in order to, so that you can become his wife. And it's, I mean, I have a sister, and it's an interesting dynamic between older and younger sister, and I'm sure that she would say the same thing from a different vantage point. So just to think of Leah, it said she's weak, she's not as beautiful as Rachel is, and that probably caused her to feel a certain way most of her life. And here she is being like used in some sort of a trickery, and it's interesting to contemplate whether she went along with it or whether she was maybe even disgusted with the idea but was obedient to her father. So it's just interesting to consider how Leah must have felt during that encounter. So then Jacob complied with Laban's request. After he completed the prescribed week of Laban's wedding feast, Laban gave his daughter Rachel to be his wife, and he slept with her. Rachel was his true love, not Leah. Leah is assigned Bilhah as his daughter Rachel's servant, which means troubled. And like I said last time, we'll see where that comes up here. And Jacob remained there serving Laban for another 7 years. So he was there for a total of 14 years and 1 month up to this point. Because remember, he served for a month without charging any wages. So when God saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, but Rachel remained childless. Leah conceived, gave birth to a son, and named him Reuben, saying, because God looked upon me with compassion in my misery, surely my husband will love me now. So Reuben means, behold, a son. And I read somewhere that it sounds like, when you say it in Hebrew, it sounds like he has seen my misery. So it's also like how sometimes we use words that sound like other phrases or things. So this was a sad lady, probably a sad girl. These women were usually pretty young, early teens when they were married, and she's hoping that now that she has given Jacob a son, that he will show her some sort of compassion, which I don't even think is necessarily uncommon today, that lots of women have children in order to receive love for themselves, feeling like they're unloved, and then wanting this baby that will unconditionally love them, or also to get their husbands to love them. I know I've heard stories of people in marriage complications that decide to have a child in order to attempt to preserve the marriage. So it's an interesting thing to think about, what loneliness does and what not being loved does, and how selfish we can be sometimes when we feel lonely, not considering this child really at all. I'm not saying that she's not. I'm just saying in these instances I've described, I noticed that people cared more about themselves than they even necessarily did about their husbands, whom they're seeking love from with this child. So she didn't enter into this pregnancy in order to get Jacob's love, but she's hoping now that she did give him a son, which was a very wonderful thing in those times, because that's how the wealth was passed down. So she said, hopefully he will love me now. And then she conceived again, giving birth to another son, naming him Simeon, which means heard, like heard with your ears, saying, God has heard that I am despised, and in his mercy he has given me this son also. Leah conceived a third time, this is verse 34, gave birth to a son and named him Levi. This time my husband will be joined to me, because now I've given him 3 sons. So her hope at the beginning, and Levi means joined to. Her hope at the beginning of this whole endeavor with her husband, with the first child, was to be loved, right? And then the second time, again, God has heard me, maybe I'll be loved. And then the third time, my husband has to love me now, I've given him 3 sons. So, once again, Leah conceived and gave birth to a son. She named him Judah, saying, this time I will praise the Lord. Then she stopped bearing children for a while. So Judah is initially the root where Jesus comes from. So Jesus is from the tribe of Judah. And as we've seen, God's choices for people and events, at least in my research, are different than I would do. Like I don't think I would choose the trickster to be the person that births the 12 tribes of Israel. So, but it's it reminds me of a saying that I use often. There's a painter, and I should know his name because I use his work often, and he uses little dots to paint. And
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
yeah, if you zoom into them, you just see these little brown dots there, and
Mm-hmm.
little black and brown dots, and you might look at them and green and whatever and say, oh, those are ugly, and why would anybody paint like this? But as I zoom out, I can see this beautiful landscape of people in the park and the water and all of these different things. So God, in his great wisdom, is so zoomed out from time that he can see how to place these seemingly ugly dots in the right
Yeah.
place
Mm-hmm.
to create a beautiful picture. So he
Yeah.
uses all of, not just things that we think look ugly, but feelings that we have that might be ugly, things that we do that might be ugly. God is so zoomed out, and he's such an incredible artist that he can use all of those things to make the whole of creation beautiful. So that's what he's doing with this situation here. So next chapter, chapter 30. When Rachel saw that she could not give Jacob children, her jealousy towards her sister simmered. So she said to Jacob, "Give me sons or I'll die." So it's this exasperated woman, and again, it's things just repeating themselves, as they often do in the Bible, as they often do in generations of families, as they often do in a person's own life. She is now jealous of this woman that's pregnant with her husband's child, just the same as Sarah was with Hagar. And so she starts acting all nasty and blames Jacob, which, as we spoke about before, it was in these times, it was the woman's responsibility. If she was unable to bear children, it was on her. It was her fault, her problem, her thing to do whatever penance towards to rectify that situation. But here Rachel blames Jacob. So that's an interesting thing. And again, to think about this woman that loved this man, and they understood the covenants that occurs during sexual relations. And so Jacob is having relations with Leah, her sister, and it's fruitful. She's bearing children. So to think about how Rachel must have felt in this situation is also, it's heavy. It's a heavy thing to think about. But Jacob replies to his disgruntled wife. He became furious with her and said, "Am I God? He's the one keeping you from bearing children." She replied, "Here's my servant Bilhah. Sleep with her. She can be my surrogate. Then I can have children through her and build a family." Huh. Might have heard this one before too. I'm sure it goes well this time. So Rachel gives her servant Bilhah to Jacob as another wife, and Jacob slept with her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. And Rachel named him Dan, saying, "God has vindicated me. He heard my voice and gave me a son." Remember, Bilhah means trouble or troubled, and Dan is a judge. And so thinking about this lady Bilhah, she was a servant girl ordered to go with Sarah to be part of this family unit, and had to do what Sarah said. And Sarah said, "You have to sleep with my husband so you can be a surrogate for my child." Thinking about how that might have weighed on Bilhah, how that would have been for her. So then her servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Rachel named him Naphtali, saying, "I have wrestled mightily with my sister and I won." So she's still thinking that she's wrestling with her sister for Jacob's love, for something to outsun him in the childbearing arena. I don't think. Oh, Raphtali means wrestle. So, and again, Rachel named him, not Bilhah, but I'm sure she was in charge of nursing the child, and then also, I'm sure formed relationships with these children, formed bonds with these children. So, and I'm not sure.
Don't you think it's such a picture of the opposite of when God said, multiply and fill the earth? And then they eat this dumb tree, and all we were listening to is about all these women saying, I am not tree. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
yeah.
so it's such a picture of how it's just so loveless. It's not what God's purpose was, obviously.
Right. Absolutely. Yep. And even with the be fruitful and multiply, it's to give what you have, not even necessarily
exactly. So
to have a ton of children. Right. So, and what these people seem to have in their hearts is bitterness.
Like servanthood, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen any outward acts of genuine love. Even with Jacob and Rachel, that was lust. He was attracted to this young lady, and he went and kissed her immediately before he even talked to her. So, and even between mother and child, between Rachel, Rebecca, between Rebecca and Jacob, there was trickery there. And Rebecca and Esau, she didn't have relationship or love. It was just because, and same with Isaac and Esau, he loved him because he brought him good food. It wasn't love for love's sake. It was, I love you because you're this for me. You're doing this thing for me. You do something. And it's just,
but remember, all these people are in Jesus' lineage, so this is his background, and it doesn't bother him.
Right. Not only doesn't it bother him, but in the blood things are timeless. So because of what he's done, he's redeemed all of these generations.
He did. I know, it's awesome.
Right. And that's what we can do as well when we are part of God's family. When we do things and practice forgiveness and practice real love, then it can transform generations in our lineage. So it's an interesting thing. So, and I think that possibly God chose this lineage to show us that no matter how rough it has been in our past, because we have him, that none of that needs to influence us anymore. It's not, well, I'm destined to be depressed because I come from a family that has depression. I'm destined to have a heart condition because my family has a heart condition. When we're born again into God's family, our DNA changes and we only have one Father. None of that can impact us anymore unless we let it, unless we invite it in. So Jesus changes us on a cellular level when we decide to love, because we love because he first loved us. So Jesus is the picture of God's love, which God is love, encapsulated in a human form. So that's what love looks like. And these are all instances of what God, or what love does not look like. So it's, I guess it's important and interesting to have the contrast. So verse 9. So again, she thinks she's wrestling with her sister, and she's actually only wrestling with herself, as we often are. Meanwhile, when Leah saw that she had ceased bearing child, she took her servant, Zilpah, and gave her to Jacob as another wife. Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Leah named him Gad. Gad means good fortune. She says, what good fortune? Zilpah bore Jacob a second son, and Leah named him Asher, saying, "Oh, happy day! All the women will say, 'She's happy now.'" Asher means happy. So now Jacob has these 4 women, and I know it's a ladies, Bible study, but let's think about Jacob. So although he might not be the most stand-up human being, now he has these 4 women that are like contentious under his roof, that he's in charge of providing for, that he's in charge of watching over and protecting. So, and they are, it seems like, at each other's throats constantly. And now we have another woman that entered the mix. And again, thinking that, yes, the tribe of Judah is where Jesus came from, but then these are the 12 tribes of Israel. So all of Israel is birthed from these 12 people who, and I'm not sure, I'll look into the lineage of the servants, but I'm not sure if they're even from the same tribes. But Jesus has chosen, God's chosen to take these people for his people, and it's because God's kingdom is upside down, and it's something we have all of eternity to try to figure out. So she's happy now. Verse 14, one day during the wheat harvest, Reuben found some mandrake plants in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your mandrakes." I don't think I looked up what mandrakes are used for. Well, shame on me. No shame. I'm taking no shame. But I will look up what mandrakes are used for. I thought they were used for aborting fetuses, but don't quote me on that because I'm not positive. So Leah replied, "You already took away the affection of my husband, so now you're going to take my son's mandrakes too?" Again, drama. Rachel said, "All right then, I'll let him sleep with you tonight in exchange for some of your son's mandrakes." So we can see here that Rachel is established as the head of this harem of ladies, and she's the one that's in charge of where Jacob spends his evenings. So that evening when Jacob was coming home from the field, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must sleep with me tonight, for I've paid for your services with my son's mandrakes." So I don't even know. It's such a mess. So now she's paying to sleep with her own husband to her sister in mandrakes, which I gotta look it up. I gotta look up what mandrakes are used for.
I just did, honey.
Okay, great. What is it?
It's a plant of some kind.
Right. What's its medicinal uses?
I'm going to tell you right now. Mandrakes. It's a member of the nightshade family that includes some of the most poisonous plants, such as nightshade, but also some of the most common vegetables, such as potatoes and tomatoes.
Right. Yep. Potatoes, tomatoes, eggplants. So they're medicine and poison.
Right.
So it's interesting.
It's also believed to be a stimulant to help with fertility and conception in barren women.
Okay, there we go. That's what I was looking for. So
she sees a way of mandrakes as a way to bear a child with Jacob.
Right, because she still doesn't have any children. She still hasn't had any children. She only had children for Jacob with her servant.
Right.
So that's okay, sure. So, and once again, Leah conceived from this interaction here and bore Jacob a 6th son, who's named Zebulon, saying, "God has given me good gifts for my husband. Now he will accept me, for I've given him 6 sons."
I think that Jacob has fallen short on telling these ladies about the God of Abraham and Isaac.
Agreed. Right. And before he met with her, he met with the angel and saw how God
Why is he
created.
letting all these heathen women tell him what to do?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just, it comes into play how men can be swayed by these women
Manipulated.
just the same. This is just like a
Yeah.
stronger thing than what happened in the garden when Adam listened to Eve, when Eve was giving him crappy advice. He listened to her because
Yeah.
whatever, because she's purty or whatever. I don't know. I don't want to inflect too much, but it seems like that's what's going on here. These women have some sort of a pull over him, and he's not asserting his authority.
No, it's not.
And it's a shame, because I'm sure it was very stressful for everyone. I wouldn't want to live in this house.
Well, I think the other thing too is he did fall short of not only telling his wife, but I don't think he raised his kids under the nurture of the Lord either.
Right. So these,
because of what they end up doing later to Joseph and stuff, but you know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
yeah.
So I don't know if he, knew to do that or was trained to do that himself. Maybe he left too young and he didn't learn what he needed to from Isaac. I don't know.
Right. Well, yeah. It seemed like Isaac was into the fleshly things too, right? Because Esau was his favorite, and because he made him delicious food, right? Not because he followed God well and he loved well and he served well and led whatever well. It was because he cooked him good food. So I don't know. I don't know what happened, because Abraham served God with all his heart. But again, he was led astray with Sarah instead of waiting for the promise of the Lord, because God told him he would have children with Sarah.
Yeah. But remember, God told Moses that Abraham knew him as Almighty God, and he didn't know him as a Redeemer like Moses was going to know.
Right.
So there was an unveiling too, or a veil at this point, that they didn't know God. There was a progressive walk, is what I'm saying. Right.
So they connected with God to the best of their current ability, as we all do. And it's just, I guess it's refreshing to see that God chose these people to work through.
Patient, right?
Yeah. So now I can say confidently that God can use me to work through, because he chooses all of these people. So and they all have varying degrees of flaws, as we all do, and God still chooses to work mightily through them.
That's not how he sees us, right?
Yeah, so we will stop there for this week. Let me make a mark here.